The bank does not care what your hopes and dreams are. But listen to the bank when they say, hey, right now their sales are down here, your payments up here. We can't do that. The sales need to be more than the payment. That is a really good tool for you to take back to the negotiating table and say, hey, you want way more for this business than it's worth. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. All right, today we are going to talk about banks are not always wrong, and we should listen because they know. I know that's not the title, but that's what I am making the introduction. I just got out of a meeting and I thought this was a very good topic. First of all, a lot of people think that I hate banks. I don't hate banks. I just don't want them to be my plan A. And a lot of times they just kind of ask some silly questions, right? But the meeting I was just in, the gentleman was talking about how he is trying to buy a operation and he is trying to buy a place, and the bank is saying, hey, that's not going to cash flow based on the numbers of what you can sell your product for. And I said, well, whose numbers are they using? Oh, they're using his current numbers. So if we're buying a business and somebody is asking X amount for a business, let's say that we are buying a business for $2 million. But the current sales of that business, you're not going to be able to make the payment on the purchase of that business because they're not selling enough to make the payment on the $2 million. That just means that they're asking too much for the business. And so what happens is we get so emotionally attached to wanting that, and we so badly want to buy that business, and we so badly want to make a go of it, and we want to have our own thing that we're like, oh, we're going to do this. But we don't actually rationally think it through. And there are people out there that do some coaching on buying businesses and if it's going to be profitable and that sort of thing. So we might come in and say, well, if I ran this business, I would do different marketing. I would do this. I would do that. We are going to make more than what the business owner currently is making. Yes, you very well may be. But the business owner right now those are the books we're looking at. So what happens is they're driving down their own business. They're driving the value of that business under $2 million because they're not doing all the right things to make that business profitable. So I don't know if you guys follow Cody Sanchez, but I really like her. And she talks about buying businesses for little or nothing and then turning those businesses around. And ironically, it just so happens to kind of lead into what I'm talking about. The bank does not care what your hopes and dreams are. But listen to the bank when they say, hey, right now their sales are down here, your payments up here. We can't do that. The sales need to be more than the payment. That is a really good tool for you to take back to the negotiating table and say, hey, you want way more for this business than it's worth. So many of us get mad because they're not giving us the loan. When in fact, they're saving their butt and they're probably saving your butt from making an emotional decision instead of making a really good financial decision. And the other thing that people don't think about is that typically what I see is that if we're buying a business, we may be buying a business with really old product. We might be buying some debt that people haven't paid yet, right? Accounts payables. We might also be paying like the building. If we're buying a building, that building might not be good. And so why are we paying for inventory of something that's not going to sell, that's already been on the shelf for 15 years? Or why are we overpaying for a building that's going to need all these repairs? So typically when people get into these situations, I see that for the first few years, there's a lot of input for infrastructure of things that we maybe paid for that we shouldn't have paid for. And the bank already knows that, right? They already have that equation and they've already figured that in. The the unfortunate side of that is the bank isn't telling you that. They're not sharing information. They may not even know, the banker may not even know that that's there and that piece is there. So you're kind of feeling rejected at that point, and you're like, oh man, I'm never getting a loan. I can't do this. This is hard. This sucks, blah, blah, blah. Is it really rejection, or dig deeper to find the lesson of what is this really going to cost me? Start asking those people and looking at those people that are doing this. What is the infrastructure cost? What are the things that you kind of have to watch out for? I don't care if people are buying a farm. I don't care if they're buying a business. I don't care if they're buying a rental property. Every rental property I have gotten into, I'm like, what in the Lord? Like, how did I miss all of these hidden things that were wrong? Like, this is just ridiculous. And it's every single property I buy. And every single property I buy, I thought I got smarter. And yet I still missed things. So even the last property I bought, I was like, oh, this is good. We don't have to do anything. There's hardly any updates here. It's great. And then I got in there and it wasn't so great. And why? Because the person I bought it from had it decorated very nicely, very nicely. And the decorations distracted from all the things that weren't exactly perfect. Or they were covering some things up that weren't perfect. So you always have to figure the fact that you are going to be putting some time into things and more money into things than what it looks like from the outside. And I am sure that anybody that talks about this has this knowledge. But I just wanted to share with you that we can sit here and make the banks out to be the bad guys. And everybody thinks that I do that. The bank is not the bad guy when they are looking at, are they going to be able to make the payment? Because they're not emotionally attached to that. Are you going to be able to make the payment? If you can use their evaluations to get the price of that down, why not do that? And everybody thinks that their place is worth more than it is, or their business is worth more than it is, because they have sweat equity that they want to get out of it. But if you haven't actually put in the correct amount of sweat equity to create something to sell, it's not going to be worth what you think it's worth. And the gentleman that I just got off the phone with, he's trying to sell his house, sounds like for about $200,000 more than what he's being offered. Now, he feels like it's worth $200,000 more. And I said to him, what is the difference if you take $100,000 less on your house and you pay the next person $100,000 less? It's a wash, right? You didn't overpay on one side and not get enough on the other. But your business is only worth what somebody is offering to give you. Your property is only worth what somebody is offering to give you. And I know I've talked about this before because it drives me crazy that people overpay for things and then they wonder why the price of things went up. Well, if you're going to start to overpay for businesses and you're going to start to overpay for real estate, guess what? That raises the average price and you just hurt yourself. You just hurt all of your peers. The guy that made out was the guy selling it. And so there has to be a fine line in the sand to what you're going to pay for something. And remember, it's one pool of money. It frankly doesn't matter if it's the sale of a house or if it's the purchase of a business. It's all your pool of money. At the end of the day, that pool stayed the same. If you offered them less, and you can offer them less because the bank says, no, it's not going to cash flow. This is where it's going to cash flow. So now we have to bring the price of that down. If they don't want the price, if they don't want to sell at that price, then they can sit there forever Because if the bank's not going to lend the money to me because that business isn't going to cash flow, they're not going to lend the money to Joe Schmo down the street. And if it's somebody that comes in with cash, then that person has probably made a silly decision to overpay, right? Because now they overpaid based on everything that's there, and they're hoping to God that their marketing and all their other stuff increases the sale. And marketing comes with a cost. Repairs come with a cost. A facelift of the building comes with a cost. Unsold inventory comes with a cost. Every day it's sitting there is taking up space. It's taking up space for something else that could possibly sell. It's stuff you're going to have to give away. I have clients that have bought in stores, just little farm stores. And one of them was really super smart. She did not pay for anything that was over X amount of years old. Absolutely not. Did she make a few dollars off of that? Absolutely. But she also had to put time and energy into figuring out how she's going to get that off of her shelf because it hasn't sold in 10 years. And she also understood she's not going to take on debt of customers that have not paid. Anybody over X amount of days out, the old owner had to carry that debt. She was not responsible for that. She did not have to go to collections for any of that stuff. And so you need to be smart about it. And the bank already is in that arena and they're smart there. So pay attention. Don't get your feelers all hurt and in a bunch. Pay attention to what the bank is saying. Sit back and reflect on it and go, whoa, how can I use this to my advantage? All right, guys, if you have not gotten the Life Without the Bank book, go and do that. It applies to anything that you're doing. It doesn't have to just be business. It's life. It's college. It's braces for the kids. It's vacation. It's nonprofits, whatever. Go grab that book, read it, and then set up your appointment so that we can talk and see if this works for you. The gentleman that I talked to today is not ready to start. And I told him that. I'm like, we are not ready. We are not in a position for you to get started. You have to buy a place. You have to sell a place. You have to move. We have a lot of transition going on. We don't have the income. We don't know what the infrastructure is going to be. So I would like to see you in a position where we've got some settlement and we've got some knowledge about finances that we can then move on and we can look at what we can do in a year or two. And so I'm not pressuring anybody to buy anything, to start anything, but we need to have that conversation so we know what's happening and that I can best help you. All right, you guys, you let me know if you need anything, maryjo@withoutthebank.com or the MJ hotline. Otherwise, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.